Tony Blair is back, with his hand firmly planted up Keir Starmer's arse and the successful Order 66ing of Corbyn and his allies from Labour. It's now safe to assume that Tony's takeover of the Labour Party is now complete, and the media class couldn't be happier. And with us approaching the next general election, and since the great British public have the collective memory of a fucking goldfish, it's more important to get a handle on who this man really is, so you can understand new Labour's values. Tony Blair made his start in the public eye with his meteoric rise to Labour leadership after 18 years of Tories under the now super duper dead Margaret Thatcher. And then John Major. Tony burst onto the scene having remodelled the old socialist, worker-oriented roots of Labour into New Labour, which adopted something called the Third Way, claiming to transcend labels of left and right. The Third Way is a political ideology which seeks to reconcile the social ideals of the centre-left with the economic ideals of the right. He succeeded a pretty unmemorable John Major, who really only won because his Labour opponent Neil Kinnock lost his mind at the last hurdle.
We're all right! We're all right! We're all right!
At his 1992 Sheffield rally shortly before Election Day. You have plenty of fools who look back fondly at his time in power because it weren't so bad, but try telling that to an Iraqi.
On Tuesday night, I gave the order for British forces to take part in military action in Iraq. Their mission? To remove Saddam Hussein from power and disarm Iraq of its weapons of mass destruction.
His crowning achievement was that illegal war that his cabal furiously advocated for with George W. Bush, murdering an estimated 1 million people and completely destabilizing the entire region. He was found by the independent Chilcot inquiry to have lied about the premise to the war, that Iraq had WMDs which directly threatened the West, among other things. But if you think his hard-on for blood was quenched with his Iraq war, you've got another thing coming, mate.
And what we should do is celebrate the freedom we have, but not hoard it. Want to go out and share its huge liberating sense of possibility.
Since then, he's been a busy Blair, ironically first serving as the UN's Middle East peace envoy and then founding the Tony Blair Institute in his own honour. The TBI is a private company employing over 800 little centrist Oompa Loompas specialising in advising political leaders and governments around the world, and even facilitating Tony's obsession with the Middle East, getting big money from Saudi Arabia. It's no wonder that The Guardian in 2023 described Blair as being even more powerful now than when he was Prime Minister. This is no isolated case. Tony Blair gets the bag, like when he secured an exemption for a nationwide ban on tobacco advertising for Formula 1 after meeting with their CEO and getting a sneaky little £1 million donation for Labour. He's also Keir Starmer's plug for getting down and dirty with old friends like Netanyahu of genocide fame. Tony is a microcosm of the Western intellectual and politician who asks that age-old question of how can we get peace in the Middle East while carpet bombing the crap out of it, while picking and choosing which maniac they want in charge, while deciding who they want to overthrow, while stealing their natural resources. God, what an unsolvable dilemma. Anyway, Tony's Third Way was and still is essentially a neoliberal rebranding of Thatcherism. Even though government spending increased in the public sectors such as healthcare and education to a degree, but just like our current crop of candidates in 2024, prefer to outsource to the private sector. Now, my personal hate of Labour isn't just about warmongering foreign policy, of course. The country is crumbling. No, literally, the buildings in this country are actually falling apart, and so are the roads and public services. You see, while we rightly associate privatisation with Tory policy, we will not fare better under New Labour. Let's talk about private finance initiatives, or PFIs, introduced in the UK as a way for the government to finance public infrastructure projects, such as schools and hospitals, using private investment rather than traditional public funding. Under this scheme, private companies would build and maintain the infrastructure, with the government making payments over a long-term period through the taxpayer. During the tenure of Tony Blair and Gordon Brown, PFIs were the dog's bollocks, and presented a solution to the underinvestment in public services inherited from previous governments. The argument was that PFIs would allow for the construction of essential infrastructure without adding to public debt or inefficiencies. However, repayments on PFI contracts were found to be exorbitant, far exceeding the original build costs. Not only this, but the process of implementing PFIs lacked transparency, with lobbying from financial interests playing a significant role in who secured contracts. Not to mention the building quality has been reported to be extremely poor and very high maintenance. Long story short, public sector entities found themselves burdened with unsustainable PFI debts. The total bill for NHS PFI hospitals was projected in 2018 to rise to over £79 billion, far surpassing the original construction costs. PFIs aren't really a thing anymore, but the damage has already been done, and you can bet they'll find new ingenious ways to further sabotage and sell off the NHS and make a hell of a lot of money. The media's and Labour's rehabilitation of Blairism, the Trojan horse for neoliberalism, is directly linked to the plans the establishment has for the domestic and foreign policies of the country. Keir Starmer, like his centrist sugar daddy Tony, will not hesitate to bomb and plunder the global south while killing the working class of this country through poverty, deprivation and profiteering. Would you lend your vote to the protege of a literal war criminal and be personally responsible for helping elect that? I hope not. I really, really hope not.